Welcome, everybody, to Wall Street Reporter's next super stock company spotlight. Today, we have a returning guest. We have Steve Saviuk, CEO of Valeo Pharma. The company actually they have a new symbol now on the OTC market, VPHIF. Just started trading in the US. Steve, welcome back.
It's nice to be back, Jack.
Steve, so you've had a lot of great news the last couple of weeks. You had that big capital raise. You raised, what is it, the $6 million plus?
6.9.
Yeah, and with some impressive firms, very prestigious banking firms in Canada.
It was a bought deal by Stifel, which is a U.S. based investment banking firm. So we dealt with their Canadian affiliate, and it went very smoothly. And as I mentioned, 6.9 million raised very quickly in these markets. I think that's quite an accomplishment.
Absolutely, and that was actually in August. We had some volatility in August.
Yeah, it closed a couple of weeks back, prospectus offering, and our shares have held up nicely post financing. There was a buy recommendation that came out. Was it from IA Securities, which is a Canadian outfit? Industrial Alliance, yes. It's a Canadian national investment bank, and their healthcare analyst had been following us for some time, and it triggered a report from her. We're very happy to say a buy recommendation with a 235 or 230 target price on the share.
48. I think it's 248.
Yeah, so it's essentially a double from this price. So we're very pleased with that report, and she dug in quite deeply into our products, our vision, our strategy, and nice that she's following us. And we certainly hope that there's a few others that will start to follow us in the coming months.
I looked at the report. Actually, I saw there was actually pretty good presentation. I don't know if we can show because it's kind of their proprietary work product, but they had a good kind of like a PowerPoint presentation which kind of stated the investment case, and they kind of went through really your whole product portfolio, the growth outlook, everything else. The cash flow projections. I mean, it is pretty thorough. But for those who don't have access to it, maybe I think we could send it out at some point. We could send out the analyst report at some point. But can you kind of walk us through, for anybody that's kind of new to the story a little bit, the Valeo business model and your current the portfolio, and then obviously some of the new product launches you're anticipating in the coming couple of months.
Yes, that's correct. Well, Valeo was created 2003. We built a portfolio which we ultimately sold to Valeant in 2015. So that's the short background on us. We are a full-service Canadian specialty pharma company focused on two therapeutic areas: oncology, neurology, and the hospital specialty market. We have, I believe, 8 products currently being marketed, and we will be launching our first U.S. product actually beginning of October with a U.S. partner. We also announced the launch of Hesperco, which is our immune support product, which is our first non-prescription product that we'll be launching. So it'll be a OTC product available beginning of October also. It's actually it can be purchased online at hesperco.com. Very interesting product. A lot of research behind it. A lot of peer-reviewed research and literature behind it that supports that the product does support the immune system. And as you know, with COVID-19 or in general, I think in today's society, our immune system needs support. The stress of our environment and working and what have you. But COVID certainly has knocked that even to a higher level. And so immune support is important. And this product has shown very interesting qualities in terms of immune support. So I think it should do very well. We will be coming out with a full marketing PR campaign, and likely some clinical support for the product, again, to try to establish the benefits of it in a very scientific way. We're a scientific company. Everything we do is based on science and
everything. I mean, like just for anybody that's new. I mean, you basically, you're taking, pharmaceutical products that are in other markets and you're bringing them to Canada. So
I mean, that's we're we are what we have all the capabilities of a big pharma company. The two areas we do not touch are research and development. So we've de-risked our model as much as possible by in-licensing products that have been either established or at least clinically tested in other jurisdictions. And the other aspect is we don't manufacture our products. Our products are typically manufactured by our licensors or third-party contract manufacturing organizations. But other than that, from all the sales and marketing activities to all the regulatory and market access activities are all done by our people here internally. So we're not a virtual company. We very much have the traditional pharma model, although that doesn't mean we're old school in the sense of our thinking and our approach. As you know, today a lot of medicine, digitally reaching our audience, whether it be physicians or other healthcare providers, is an important part. And certainly during this pandemic, where it has been very tough. I mean, physicians not being able to see patients not being able to, our representatives not being able to see physicians. That's starting to turn, but I do have some concerns about just the overall increase in cases, especially here in Canada. And again, that goes back to Hesperco, which I think is well suited for environments where our immune system needs to be supplemented.
Okay. So it's kind of interesting you mentioned that. Yeah, the COVID thing is definitely picking up. I think in Europe since
Europe, in Canada, and specifically in Quebec and in Montreal, which is where we're located. I mean, there's various levels of, warnings, and we're up to orange, which I believe is one before red. So cases are picking up, which was expected. And I think we're in for a tough fall and winter in that area. So I encourage people to do all the things that, wearing masks and distancing and washing hands, but also ensuring that we're as healthy as we can be to start with.
Okay, so it's interesting. So Hesperco, so it's basically an immune support product, and here's what I kind of find interesting is you're essentially you've always done prescription, pharmaceuticals. What made you decide to go into an OTC product? Why this product? What's so unique about it? And how is that going to be different? Like, where do you see this opportunity?
Well, it is a change to some degree, or from, let's say, our existing or the type of products we normally looked at. But what interested us is at the base, we're looking at products that actually can help people in ways that they're not currently being helped. Whether it's our Parkinson's drug, which has some differences from the existing Parkinson's drugs on the market, which actually helps in motor symptom support or motor relief of some of the issues with motor symptoms with Parkinson's patients. So we're always looking for a medical benefit. This opportunity, and it's a category of compounds called bioflavonoids, which are generally, in this case, they're citrus derived, and there are many. There's, I think, about 4,000 bioflavonoids in total. But based on the research that we've done, and our partner Ingenu, which is a small biotech company out of Montreal, manned by some very smart people, they did extensive research and literature search on some of the more of the bioflavonoids that seem to demonstrate the type of properties that we were looking for to improve the immune system or support the immune system. And based on this literature search and the research they've done, we became more and more convinced that this actually has a real place in today's environment and in ongoing environment in terms of helping the immune system is really core to keeping us healthy from whether it be bacterias or viruses. So It actually surprised me in terms of the amount of science behind this. It's probably one of the most scientifically researched bioflavonoids in existence. The science was very compelling, and we said, it doesn't necessarily fit our model, but it fits in helping people maintain a healthier, healthier bodies, healthier immune system, and that's kind of what made us go in that direction. So you got to, I think, with all our compounds, we do focus on therapeutic areas, but we have to look at and keep our eyes, I guess, and our developments open to products that really are compelling, and this one's very compelling. And as when we talk, let's say, about COVID-19 as a pandemic, I mean, it's probably top of mind, one of the most searched words on the internet today, and it's people are concerned about it, and they have every right to be concerned about it. And I think that anything that can maybe help you in any way to deal with this situation is for companies in the health science area, whether it's to develop a vaccine or to develop therapies. We are one of our new products that we talk about. Hesperco is being launched. It'll actually be launched in early October, but we talk about it openly now. It's available to be purchased online at hesperco.com. Another product that we're working on that we expect approval very shortly is called Redesca, low molecular weight heparin, very large market in Canada, about a $200 million market we will be addressing. And interestingly enough, it's an anticoagulant, which means it prevents coagulation, blood clots in the body. And as you know, Jack, that microembolisms or micro clots are a big concern with patients that develop COVID-19. So you have low molecular weight heparin being used very as part of the treatment protocol of all symptomatic hospital administered or hospital admitted patients due to its anti-clotting capabilities. So there's another product that is not specifically for COVID, but it's because of its properties is being used in fighting the pandemic, and we're very excited about having this. Obviously, it's a big revenue opportunity for Valeo, and very, very good product.
Okay. Now, Redesca, you see that as a $200 million market in Canada?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. That's interesting. Last time we
market. So it's a market that we will be actually going after market share. There's three competitive products that have been around for 25 years. Our product is something called a biosimilar, so it's biologically similar to these products, and we think that we can be very competitive in the Canadian market with this product.
It's interesting, Steve. I think last time we had you on, we kind of went through a kind of like this, your whole kind of model of how you kind of analyze a product that you're going to bring onto market. Usually these drugs have, you're basically taking established products, so they usually have whatever it is, X amount of dollars. So you do a lot of research. You know exactly what they're doing in their kind of home market or worldwide. Then you kind of are able to analyze what it's going to do in Canada based on there's a massive amount of data. So the question is now with Hesperco, are you able to get that type of data and research? I mean, were you able to get something like that? Which
it's a very interesting question. We've got a number of different models that we're running. The market opportunity is obviously huge. I mean, if you, in theory, you could say every Canadian should be taking this product to support their immune system, which would be numbers that are difficult to even put on paper. But realistically, I think people that are vulnerable, healthcare workers or people that have been affected by a virus or a coronavirus, for instance, should be. I would support and I would believe that they should take our product. I think it's a very good add-on, no side effects. and it's essentially, like similar to taking a daily vitamin. It can be taken prophylactically, so that means even when you're feeling well, you could take it. If you start to feel any symptoms, you could take it. And again, anything to help it boost your immune system is a plus in the times that we live in. We're, revenue projections, as I say, are very hard to come by, but certainly modeling, our internal models are, 10 to 20 million. But I think we are, again, our typical
Canada alone.
Canada alone. We are looking.
You plan to do this worldwide, right?
Well, we will certainly launch, or our expectation is to launch in the U.S. We are talking to, again, it'll be a retail product, so we have some initial discussions with retailers in the U.S. Again, they get more of the, let's say, the pharmacies that would be more specialist pharmacies that like to counsel their patients a little bit more. So there's that bit more of that one-on-one would be probably our initial drop points in terms of where we plan to go. But yes, we absolutely plan to register in the U.S. and to have this product launched. One of my colleagues is just leaving, gave me a sign through the window. But so leaving early today, I see. But we think, the numbers could be anything. If you said to me, could you do 50 million with this product? Yeah, we could probably do 50 million with this product. But conservatively, we have the manufacturing capability. We have the access to the ingredients. We've worked on a lot, and as I mentioned, we will start shipping across Canada retail early October. So
right now, basically, we're like a week away from launch.
Yeah, it's down to things like packaging and we have capsules manufactured. We've been working with a contract manufacturer here in our province that has great capabilities, both in Canada and has FDA clearance. So we can sell, or mind you, the formulation will stay the same. The packaging has to change slightly. As you know, in Canada, we have 2 official languages versus US, where you'd be packaging only in English. Likely, so there's slight differences in what's on the package, but it's I think very we have a lot of interest from it. People calling and asking when it's going to be available, and as I say, we will be coming with more information on the product. But I would suggest that again, someone could go to our website, which is Hesperco, HESPERCO. And maybe more interesting, if you have a scientific bent and if you like to read, you should go to our collaborator on this product, the company that actually brought the concept to us and has done some of the research behind it. And their name is Ingenew, so it's INGENEW Pharma.com. If you Google that, go to their website. You'll see some of the publications that have been developed on this product over the last 20 years, actually probably starting with SARS in 2002. So a lot of research done on a very interesting molecule. So this is not just, what I say in terms of what I've read and how compelling it is, but this is independent researchers that have done work both in vitro, like in test tubes, but also in vivo, in large animal, showing the benefits of taking our active ingredient, so this is scientifically,
So there's data out there. There's data out there.
A lot of scientific data out there, and this is when you said earlier what drew me to it. That's what drew me to it.
Okay.
There's a lot of products out there that make whatever type of claims, and there's very little. It's very anecdotal but there's a lot of analytical data regarding our product, and that's what drew me to it, and that's kind of in keeping with our motto, or our core moral or values, which are introducing products that have greater efficacy, less side effects, or address health needs that may not be addressed by other products in the market currently.
Okay, and so what's interesting? Okay, so there's basically scientific data on it, and what's kind of the more, and I think one of the interesting things is that this kind of would work synergistically with some of your existing, prescription products, because again, it's an immune support product, which, doctors can include with, these other things like, Hesperco, et cetera.
It's not, again, it doesn't need a prescription. All our drugs are available in pharmacy, but most of them you have to go with a doctor's prescription. Our head commercial officer has extensive background working in OTC. He was, in fact, managing Sharing Plow's OTC portfolio in Canada. So that's, Coppertone, Dr. Scholl's, what have you. So he has experience with the various retailers in Canada. So we have expertise in that area. It's not a core area that in other words, I would not expect to see a portfolio of over-the-counter drugs being launched by us, but this one is specific. This one has, as I said, that extensive science that will get supported in a clinical way, and I can't say much more than that, but it will be at this point in time. I can't say more than that, but hopefully shortly I will. And this drew it to us. It's
people have to read between the lines here, because I know you're a very conservative guy.
And hopefully I'll be able to say more, or we'll be able to announce more in the coming days, not weeks or months, about that. But we have some really interesting, comments from physicians and clinicians about the use of this product, and you'll be seeing more of that. So again, it's based on other healthcare professionals having read the literature and saying, there's a lot of merit to this. Yes, it needs to be more clinically evaluated, like many drugs or many compounds even. But there's something there that certainly implies, immune support and supports the immune the whole issue, the whole area of immune support. So I'm very very high on it, and in fact, I take it myself. So as do several people in our office, and and
it's working so far.
Well, so far, touch wood, as they say, but no, a lot of times with anything, whether it be natural product or whether it be a prescription product, the side effects can be something you can be concerned about. The side effect profile of this product is very good. So again, you can take it prophylactically, or even when you're feeling well. Our recommendation is you take 1 gram per day, every day. On an empty stomach, and so
that's one pill, basically.
Scientific data, that's when it works. It's 2 capsules, actually, 2 500 milligram capsules. Very easy to take. Nice bright orange color, much like the logo or the sign on the bottom of the screen.
Especially for you.
Again, being available at least right now across Canada, and hopefully shortly. And when I say shortly, in the next 4 to 6 weeks in the U.S.
Okay, so that'll be very interesting. So you mentioned revenues before. We were talking about Redesca, which you're going to be launching now. To kind of give a snapshot, you're doing what's the run rate right now with the existing product? Is how much?
Our run rate right now is about 10 million Canadian, which may sound small and is small, but you have to look at the products that are in our pipeline. This summer we've launched 2, which are they were launched mid to late August, so they're just starting to enter into our revenue stream. We have our U.S. product called ethacronic sodium, which is an injection, a hospital product, which will be launched early October. Our year end is October 30th, and then Hesperco will be launched early October. So we'll be exiting the year at a run, what I believe to be a run rate, far in excess of that, probably more of a run rate around 15. And our projections for next year are revenues in the $20 to $24 million range. So more than doubling from here, and the year after a similar 50-75% jump to in the 30s. And that's just with what we have. When we did our first presentation, we talked about products we currently have licensed and in registration with Health Canada, or approved even by Health Canada, that we are waiting to launch. So this is what we can say is in the sort of.
It's the existing. It doesn't include new stuff. Okay.
It doesn't include anything more that we're working on, and clearly we continue to work on new drugs. And when you said earlier, it's our profile of what type of drugs we go after, and I'm not talking therapeutically. We talked about neurology, which neurological diseases, Parkinsons, what have you. We talk about oncology, where we launched Yondelis several weeks ago, which is for a rare type of cancer. Yondelis sells in the U.S. It does about 100 million U.S. Marketed by Janssen Ortho. So we're the Canadian arm of not of Janssen Ortho, but of Yondelis, which has some really compelling data. But we're looking for drugs that are innovative. So typically, yes, it could be drugs that are already on the market. It could be drugs that are just finishing phase 3, and we look at the clinical data to see can they be registered in Canada. They could be drugs that have just been approved, let's say, by the FDA or by Europe's medicines agency. So we're looking at trying to de-risk. We don't want to take that R&D risk, that clinical risk. That's not our business model. It's not a bad model. There are a lot of biotech companies, NASDAQ traded, what have you, that are doing some fantastic research. And the valuations reflect that research in terms of the worldwide potential of these drugs. What we like to do is go to those companies once they finish their clinical trials, once they've shown efficacy, once they've met what's known as the endpoint. So when you start a clinical trial, you say, this is what I want to show at the end of the trial. And at the end of the trial, you say, well, did I meet that? Did I meet those criteria that I've imposed, or that the FDA and ourselves have imposed upon on the trial? What we look then is to say, well, you're a U.S. biotech company. You're going to want to exploit the U.S. market, commercialize in the U.S. You probably are not going to look at Canada. Canada is a relatively, although it's a large physical country with 37 million people, we're not much bigger than the size of Texas or California, actually. So you have to think that a lot of U.S. companies are hesitant to set up an infrastructure in Canada. Yet they have drugs that need an infrastructure. They need the medical infrastructure. They need sophisticated salespeople and what have you. That's what we have. So we are a great partner for them. They don't have to replicate something for maybe one drug in Canada, where the revenue potential is relatively limited versus, let's say, in the U.S. Or what we see often is they want to set up in Europe, or they want to find a partner in Europe, because obviously the European market is 500 million people. It's a very attractive market.
Okay, so what's interesting is essentially you're taking with these specialty pharmaceuticals, you're taking a really, I think it's important for people to understand this. You're really taking a systematic, data-driven approach to acquiring and then launching these products, because. And we talked about this before, which I found fascinating. I didn't know this until you mentioned it the last time. Is when you look at a product, you already know that they're doing X amount of dollars or potentially based on a patient population. So if there's X amount of people with this, illness, whatever it is, and this product addresses that, you more or less know that, okay, we're going to get X% of this because there's other drugs that do. So it's. Now, here's my question. How, based on you're doing this for a while, you've had other successes in the industry, how accurate is your model? How close do you get to your projection?
I would like, the thing, what I would say, Jack, is you're like most modeling, you're never on 100%. You never hit the bullseye right on. You're either over or you're under. But as long as you're within a certain standard deviation of that over and under, by that I mean, if you expect to do $30 million of revenue, you do $2 million. There's something wrong in your process, and there's something wrong in the way you looked at something. So we try to we don't miss in by that magnitude.
Yeah, sure.
But
how close? Are you within 20%?
I would say it's hard to put a percentage on it, but I would say you're going to be 25, 30 above or below the number. Our scenarios are low, medium, high also, because on things that sometimes are out of our control. Sometimes it's pricing. Sometimes it's the reimbursement. Reimbursement means who's going to pay for the drug. In Canada, we have universal medicine. That doesn't mean that every drug is actually paid for by the government. There are some drugs that are not, and then that affects the revenue potential of those drugs. But
it's a number. I mean, it's a model. You're able to model. I mean, accurately enough.
Yeah, and by people who've been doing it for 20 years and who've launched many many drugs, and who've there is an element of marketing to a drug. Sure. But clearly to us the most important thing is what are the benefits to the patient and communicating those benefits to physicians. So where I would say not so much in terms of revenue where we might be off, but where I would say sometimes is how quickly we ascend to that revenue, because the adoption curve on any new medication is got so many factors that affect it. That's where sometimes you could be ahead or behind. But when in terms of 6 months or a year, based on factors really that are in many ways out of your control, so you try to factor that in. So the numbers I'll probably talk to you about are what I would consider more conservative numbers, ones that I want to be able to say, if I tell you a number, we should be within 10% of that number. Does that mean that that's necessarily where we think it's going to go at the end of the day? No, we have more aggressive projections, but I guess the probability and the variability are higher on those because of these external factors.
Yeah,
One thing I want to make sure is we've got the right drug in that category, and which has the right benefits to the patient. If you start with that, you can do a lot of things. We try not to be a Me Too company, which has another drug in a category where there's not much to differentiate it, and and I think that's what we want our physicians to expect from us, is that when we're bringing them something, it's really something that can improve their patient outcome, and that's what But even having said that, it doesn't happen on the first visit. It takes multiple visits. Right. Physicians are trained in a very sort of scientific fashion. They want to read the clinical trials. They want to ask questions before they start prescribing it to patients. And you have to expect too, some patients are doing well on the medication they're on. So maybe our in a particular drug, let's say for instance our Parkinson's drug, what we're seeing is more of the new patients coming in are being placed on our drug. So that takes a little bit longer, but it's very once they're on our drug, we feel they'll stay on our drug. So this is some of the things we consider when we decide which drugs to pursue. Obviously, we can't do everything. We can't be everything to everybody. I think it's focus is being very, very good at what we do. So it's in a football analogy, it's like the place kicker. He's very accurate, but don't ask him to maybe be the punter. That's someone else, or be the quarterback. That's our philosophy is very much about bringing good medication, but being very focused, knowing physicians, knowing our patient population. And I think when you set up those initial very strong fundamental blocks, those are the foundations for commercial success also. And that's kind of our philosophy internally. It's got to be a drug that helps patients lead better lives, control their conditions in some better, have some positive medical outcome.
Yeah, no, I think though it's important, for investors to understand. I think the real takeaway from this is that, your business model is really based on, it's a real systematic approach. It's a model. It's almost like, I don't want to say it's kind of a bad example, but it's almost like you're running a casino where you're going to make X amount. You bring in X amount of people. You're going to have it's a wrong metaphor, whatever, but very similar, mathematical approach. And you're by trade, I think your background is an accountant, right?
I was kind of hoping you wouldn't bring that up, but I'm a I guess
guy.
You would have CPA many years ago. Been involved in pharma now 20 years. On the management side of it, we have great people that work for us.
This is no like, again, because investors when they see the word pharma attached to a company, they think, okay, these guys are, it's R&D risk. We don't, it's like a wild gamble. It's not really. What you have is you're taking.
We try to de-risk it. try to get drugs that meet a lot of criteria, and sometimes the criteria of it being a good drug from the point of view of efficacy, or as I mentioned, side effects or whatever, that's a part of it. But again, if you can't get that drug paid for, then it's in some ways futile, because you have a medication that can help people, but again, people can't afford it. Let's say it may be too expensive or things of that nature. So there's a lot of work that goes into selecting the drugs, knowing that we can only, like all our peers, or even the big drug companies, they know they have only a certain bandwidth in terms of what they can manage in terms of therapeutic areas and drugs, and that's why many of them spin off divisions. When you look at Abbott spun off AbbVie and others, some of these, it's just because it becomes unwieldy at some point in time. So for us, it's focus. There's a tendency to say, I want to in-license a lot of drugs. I think that's, you need a certain base. You'd like to have a certain base of drugs, because if there's a slowdown on one, you have others that pick up the slack or hold that continue to drive revenue. But I think you don't want to get overextended to where you cannot properly support the drugs that you have. And I think that's it takes a lot of discipline, and that's the stage we're going at now. We're looking at, I think, as we grow, bigger and bigger drugs in terms of sales potential, but that need much more support, but are also much more lucrative from a financial point of view. And we have to cater to, obviously, our shareholders that have invested a lot of money, including myself, and all our employees are shareholders. We're one of the most employee director-owned pharma companies in Canada. We're probably the most in terms of the amount of ownership that we have internally, although we're a public company with a public float and what have you. So we have to, obviously, there has to be a benefit to our shareholders, but there are more, as importantly, there has to be a benefit to the healthcare system. And that's, the doctors, the pharmacists, people who work in hospitals, and most importantly, the patients. They have to see a benefit. And I think it's a big ecosystem that you have to keep going, but you have to recognize that it's not about just shareholders. It's got to be the whole, and I think that's it's a key kind of fundamental value that we have, much like it's a key value that everyone in our company has to own shares, and they're not given shares, they buy shares, they pay for shares. I think it drives people to do the right things because they're looking to build the company. We want to, my objective is to build a company that's valuable. And I think our corporate and our institutional and our retail investors want me to build a company that's valuable, because that's obviously going to build the share price up, and that's where they make their return. I think from the caregivers and the patients, the more successful we are, the more drugs we can bring in, and the more we can support programs like continuing education for physicians, like supporting patients with various risk management systems or ongoing support. We do have a compassionate drug program for those who cannot afford our drugs. So we want to make sure that it's not just about making money, it's about making sure people have access to medication that can really help their lives.
Okay. And Steve, what in terms of, based on kind of your model of what these drugs can do, so your existing pipeline, right? So based on that, what is kind of the projection? Like, what can that pipeline do?
Existing pipeline, we're looking, $100 million.
Okay.
Need $100 million, maybe even more than that. So
just the existing pipeline, 100 million plus.
Just the existing pipeline,
and that's based on a proven model. I mean, it's based on a real model.
The model is been used by we didn't invent a model.
Right.
It is a very model.
It's an industry model.
Yeah, it's an industry model. Even to some degree, you can even say that some of the big pharma companies, they don't necessarily develop all of their drugs. They in-license some of their drugs, so or acquire companies that have certain drugs, and then they commercialize them. So it is a proven model. I mean, there is I can't say the drug business is totally recession-proof, but it's pretty close to it. With the aging population, and it's not price increases. We're not talking about
Right.
increasing prices. We're talking about just the use of drugs as the population ages. If you look back, even to you're still a young guy, and I'm not that old myself, but when I look back 20 years ago, I'm taking more meds today to control whether it's pain.
Well, they're coming up with new things to keep you alive. Yeah,
it's a normal fact of a generally aging population and there's the fact that you have medication that can actually help you with some of these symptoms, whatever they may be.
They didn't have that 30 years ago. There's a lot more.
Yeah, no, exactly. 30 years ago. So, you were just at the beginning, I think, then of the statins and controlling your cholesterol. And what's interesting about some of our drugs, like Parkinson's drug or even Hesperco to some degree, it's not a drug, but is you could take it for the rest of your life. I mean, the Parkinson's drugs you would take for the rest of your life. It's a disease that does not go into remission. It continues to progress as you age. You can control the symptoms to some degree. You cannot stop the symptoms. You can't reverse the symptoms. So you're on this. It's known as chronically. You're on it for the rest of your life, much as you're on, a cholesterol lowering agent. It's not all of a sudden one day that your cholesterol is going to. Once you're on it, you're pretty well on it for the rest of your days. Other drugs are more acute. So Redesca would be an acute drug. For instance, you're in the hospital. You're having a knee implant, you're bedridden, they want to make sure that there's no blood clots that could potentially be fatal if they reach your lungs or cause other problems. So you'll be on a product like Redesca for about 2 weeks, and then you're probably never going to use it again in your life. So there's these mixes of drugs that are also a factor into the benefits or what we look at in when we assess a drug. Is it short-term use, long-term use, and the benefits of it, and what you hope is that it's a short-term use, that given people's medical conditions, typically a lot of our ailments are kind of long-term ailments and necessitate that, if you're on a high blood pressure medication, unless you really change your lifestyle and lose a lot of weight, your chances are you're going to be on it for the rest of your life.
So it's interesting. So to recap, you got the existing portfolio that you have. Your model says it's going to be doing about 100 million revenues, a couple of years out, and this is again based on kind of a proven model. I use the casino analogy. It's really closer to the insurance, the actuarial. It's sort of like that model. You kind of, it's based on numbers, based on like a belt, whatever the approach is.
There's product life cycle with all products. Well, that the new adoption and the slow curve, and then you peak out, and then at some point either there's a generic product that comes out, or there's another drug that comes out that does it's got better qualities than the drug that you have.
But you have that built into your model because what things are in development. You can keep
it forever, right? It's like aging in the human population. Drugs age too. Also, I should say, rather than two, but so there are, if you look at, a number of different drug categories. There are first generation, and then years later, second generation comes out, which improves upon the first generation. If we look at our Parkinson's drug, we're a third generation MAOB inhibitor. So these drugs have been out in the marketplace for 15, 20 years, and all of a sudden now you have a new drug coming out which does things a little bit better in some cases, and in other cases does things a lot better. So this is the natural evolution of research, which are taking today's standard and saying in 10 years we will have something that will create a new standard, and that's what's exciting. What excited me as you called me a numbers guy, but about the whole science area is it's changing. I mean, your life expectancy is growing. Your life expectancy of living a healthy life is growing. It's not just about existing to a certain age, but actually quality of life. And whether that be through mechanical fixes, like we mentioned, knee implants to a degree, or whether it's just being by controlling, controlling various diseases which would have otherwise probably shortened your life in an earlier day, or where you would not have been able to control in an earlier day. So the progress is being made, and it's for companies such as us. In a certain way, Valeo, its reason for being is to make available drugs in Canada, at least initially, that have a true health benefits to which otherwise wouldn't be here. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, the company that's received billions of dollars of investment from whether it's venture funds or what have you to develop a drug. I mean, they have to make a return for their shareholders in addition to sort of taking care of and obviously through taking care of patients. But there is that balance there, and so it's I think it's just important that you have the right team, the right values, the right mix going forward. But we we expect Valeo to be around for a long time. We wanted to build it to be the preeminent Canadian pharma company in its therapeutic areas. We can't, as I mentioned, also can't be everything to everyone. We're not a cardiology company, so that those are not medications that we think that we want to focus on, or the kidney, for instance, or women's health. As important as that is, there are other companies that are more focused on that. For us, we're focused on the brain and the CNS, and so neurology, CNS, and oncology, which is a very obviously big area, and but big area which has many little subtle, smaller areas, because there are many types of cancer that are addressed with specific drugs. So it's building a specialty in those areas.
Interesting. So in terms of the exciting part is you have this kind of model, you have the system. And how are you going to scale up? I mean, you've raised a decent amount of money. Are you planning to launch more products? What's the plan? What's the kind of the growth plan for launching new products? So I guess anybody who's watching this, they can kind of model and see, okay, well, these guys, based on these new products, they can be doing X amount. They could do, I don't know, $1 billion in revenues, whatever the number is.
Well, maybe over time, you're always looking to find a drug that's got significant benefits and significant mass appeal. That's probably what every drug company, certainly the multinationals, look for, these so-called billion-dollar drugs. Our aspirations are a little not smaller from the point of view as, yes, we want to have big drugs too, but we're focusing more on certain niches in these areas. So like I say, whether it be neurology, which has many different neurological conditions which can be treated. Everyone's looking obviously for something for Alzheimer's. There's nothing really out there right now. There's a lot of research going on, but if there is, we certainly want to be there trying to find these drugs and bring them to Canada. Oncology, as I mentioned, there's many new oncological agents which are launched every year, and we want to, again, it's looking at which ones we think can drive benefits for Canadians and for our company. You want to, but over time you accumulate this portfolio, and as much as there's life cycle management in there, we expect that our revenues will continue to rise. There's no reason to think that there's a cap. The Canadian pharma market is in excess of $30 billion. $30 billion. Wow. Okay. Now, a lot of that is generic, and there's a lot of that is held by the multinationals, but there's a sizable market here. And as with the population ages, we can only see that growing, even irrespective of pricing pressures. We believe the market will continue to grow because people want to feel better. They want to take care of their health better, and frankly, they go see they want to go see the doctor if they have something that ails them, and they don't want to be they want to try to reach an old age and enjoy life as much as possible. So the market is growing. So there's nothing that says, well, you can only be $100 million company and that's the ceiling. There is no ceiling. I mean, to say we'll be a $2 billion revenue company, well, that's not even a ceiling. But can we get there in a reasonable period of time? Well, there's challenges to that, right? But I think there's no real limitation as to how a company grows. It's all about strategy and execution. and a little bit of luck. You got to say that comes in. But what we find is the more specialized you get, the more you attract good opportunities. Because, for instance, when you look at neurology today, we're one of the few companies that actually talk to neurologists on a daily basis. So if you're a European company or an American company, you've developed a new neurological agent, and you're saying, well, I'd like to partner in Canada. We have a very compelling story for you to say you should partner with us, because we already talked to some of the doctors that you probably want your drug to be spoken about by. So in other words, the physicians, there's a category, or the pyramid is the KOLs, key opinion leaders on top. They're very specialized, and they'll research a drug, and then they'll come out with protocols that other physicians will follow across Canada, or even in the U.S. It works in a very similar fashion. Once you know these physicians, you have a relationship.
Okay, so it's a valuable franchise. Basically, it's a valuable franchise.
It's a structure that can manage products from registration all the way to commercialization, and that commercialization encompasses all of these aspects of physician interaction, patient interaction. So you are kind of, in a certain way, one of the go-to companies, and that's what we want to be seen. We want to be seen that when a neurological drug is being thought of for Canada, that we're considered, that my objective is that these foreign companies, or foreign, I say out of Canada, US, Europe, Asian, they think we've got to speak to Valeo. We might not do a deal with Valeo at the end of the day for X, Y, Z reasons, but we have to speak to them because they're one of the key players in that therapeutic area. And that is what we think separates our business model when we talked about, in licensing, other people do, from certain other companies. They're not involved in the areas we're involved in. They may be, as I mentioned, men's health, women's health, cardiology or renal, kidneys, indications. We're focused in ours, and there's not a lot. There is competition, but there's not a lot of competition. And as we grow in these areas, our objective and our mandate and our strategy is to become the dominant player in those areas. So where, as I mentioned, we're kind of the go-to guys, go-to company that has the expertise, and that expertise is like physician expertise. You'll go to see a doctor because you have a certain ailment. You'll go see another one because you have another ailment. But they've specialized, and you want to see someone as a specialist because he has all of this expertise, this knowledge, this ability to help you in a similar way that we are building our business.
Okay. Now so you're focused on the neurology and oncology, and you just spent some time talking. Actually, you really gave a very good explanation of why you specialize. So in terms of neurology, how big is that market in Canada alone? Just neurology.
It's again, these it's some of it. Let me just say, for instance, if you look at depression, which is this is obviously a neurological condition, it's $1 billion market in Canada, as an example. Not always addressed by neurologists, not all of it. Some of it is addressed by your family practitioner and what have you. But it's a big market, and there's various stages of depression. There's treatment-resistant depression. There's various let's say levels of depression. So it has to be so that gives you, and that's just one category. If we look at something like Parkinson's disease, it's probably a $120 million market in Canada. Alzheimer's, well, there's really no market per se because there's no medications for this market. We're talking multi-billion-dollar markets. Oncology, similar, billion-dollar market. So these are not small markets. That's not to say they're easy to access because there are many drugs in some cases, but so you pick parts of these, of these markets, and with medications that can do 10 million or 20 million. Our model is trying to find drugs that do, $10+ million. Does that mean if we saw a drug that we said, well, it'll only do 8, that we won't take it? No, because when your sales representative goes in to see a doctor, you want that representative to have a number of drugs that they can talk to the physician about. Not just one.
You get economies of scale.
And typically there's three, there's first place, second place, and third place might be just leaving a sample or leaving a brochure or an article that was recently written, what have you. But this is the kind of the way to amortize your and to create efficiencies within your sales team. And that's an important, aspect in terms of trying to, become efficient, effective, and ultimately, profitable also.
Okay. So Steve, last two questions, which is, what do you have coming up in terms of milestones, and what can investors look forward to over the next, let's call it 3 months, right into the end of 2020?
Well, I think that in terms of could be a lot of small events like earnings or our financial statements being presented and what have you. But the real big events to us will be Hesperco. Clearly, that's one that so there's the various aspects of it is commercialization, and then some of the hopefully some of the articles that'll be coming out about it. So that'll keep us in the news, I believe. Redesca, which we expect approval in the coming weeks. Then there's the launch, and it's a very active time here because we are adding to our sales team to support the launch of Redesca, which in our view will be our biggest product going forward. And there's always things that we are working on that maybe we can't talk about right now because they're not. Once we are in a binding agreement with someone, we disclose it publicly. But I can say we are in negotiations with several companies on several new drugs, and I would hope that over the coming 3 months we would have something more concrete to say about those. So I think it'll be a very active news time for us. And we're quite excited about where we're at compared to last year. I think we've made some great strides from a revenue and earnings perspective. We're just starting to get into that period because of the launches that we had late summer and upcoming in October with both sodium methacrynate and with Hesperco, and then obviously with the launch of Redesca, which probably will be early next year in terms of commercialization, the actual product hitting the shelves. Again, that's going to be another big step forward to us. So it's, every year we try to move the company up, but what you find is as you get bigger, you move up quicker. So it's like going from 2 to 4 million took some time, but going from 4 to 8 and 8 to 16 starts to happen a little faster. It's almost like the structure starts to roll a bit quicker.
Snowball effect.
It builds momentum, and as I said, we've got a number. We're expecting 1 or 2 smaller approvals in the fall. Actually, in October and November, we have a third approval that's already a drug that's already approved, which is its manufacturing delay in the sense of COVID did cause some delays in manufacturing. That product should get launched late first quarter next year. So these are all additional revenues that will, so there's 2 types of growth, I suppose. There's our organic growth, which we expect to continue to occur with the products we currently launch. And then there's a growth that comes from adding on products. So these are you have these 2 kind of pistons working to help drive the revenues up.
Okay. And so Steve, so last question, which is, for our favorite question here at the Wall Street Reporter, which is, in your opinion, what are the top 3 reasons why investors should consider Valeo Pharma stock right now?
Well, I think one of the reasons is we're still trading, or we're trading at a 80 million Canadian dollar market cap, which I think is very conservative given our pipeline and our potential. Number 2, you're looking at myself and our management team and our board of directors and all our employees that are significant shareholders in the company. I think we're still above 65% even after this last financing, probably in the higher 60s. So we are aligned with our investor shareholders. I mean, we want to build revenue, earnings, market capitalization, which directly affects our share price, which is the share price is a component of that. And I think that's our objective internally by having invested so much of ourselves into the company. And I think that aligns us very well with our investee or investor shareholders, whether they be in the U.S., Europe, or in Canada. We have the same objective: build value. I think the fact that we're at this sort of inflection point. So you can always say, well, Steve, what you said is great, but why don't I wait to buy the shares? I could wait. And yeah, everyone can wait. Timing is always a difficult thing to predict in the stock market, correct? But I think we're at an inflection point now. I think some of the news that's coming out is material, is changing the way people looked at us. I mean, we were a 40, 50 cent share price stock in March or April of this year. And as a result of some of this momentum that we've been building in terms of product launches, our share price actually has moved up nicely to $1. I think at 40 or 50, we were extremely undervalued, and we were just an unknown. We started to get more known. As you mentioned, one analyst wrote on us. We would hope that several others will be writing about us in the coming weeks. All of these are catalysts towards our share price and our valuation going up. But it has to be driven from inside. We have to, revenues have to grow, our product acquisitions and potential has to grow. But it's all happening now. It's all kind of coming to a kind of a junction right at this point in time. And I think that's why we think it's a good time for investors. And as we said, Industrial Alliance came out with a buy recommendation at $2.30 or 40 cents per share. So I guess other people are starting to see too that
we got a question from the audience. Could you see $5 price target for next year, 2021?
Certain things happen. Yeah, I can see it. I think that again, I don't look at it as a stock price. I look at it what would be proper, or what could be our valuation based on certain metrics, and then you just do the math backwards by dividing by the number of shares outstanding. And yeah, I could see that. I mean, that's what we're again, when we say we are owners, we're driving to create value here, to create a very valuable company. Again, not for patients, for doctors, but also for our shareholders. So it's we don't have a ceiling price. I mean, we just want to build this company. So could 5 be there next year? Absolutely, it could be there next year. I mean, and hopefully even higher as we continue to build and add products.
It's forward looking. I mean, the market basically values your company based the pipeline, the deals, everything.
If we have a product in the pipeline that even is going to be commercialized a year or a year and a half from now, but that we believe has a certain revenue and earnings potential or contribution potential, and that third parties or outside investors also look at and see, wow, look at the potential of this product, much in the same way as a biotech company is developing a drug and going through phase 1, 2, 3. As they go through these phases, you'll see valuations. The company has no revenue per se, but people are projecting, doing the mathematical calculations of what could be the revenue of this drug, therefore what could be the earnings and what would be the multiple, and then they discount that back. So you sometimes see a biotech company with a several $billion market cap and 2 products, 3 products in the pipeline. People obviously believe that the future has a value today, and I think that's the same with us. When we in-license one of those drugs, we can say, that drug might not hit the market for X number of months, or even a year. It's rare more than a year and a half, let's say, but it could be as much as, let's say, 18 to 20 months. But people, if it's the right drug and if it's got that real game changer potential, people will give you value for it. They'll give you value today for that drug. So, we can, that certainly would help in terms of when you want to see a share price appreciate in the short term. You can say, well, your sales, have to, they have to grow. They're going to have a growth trajectory, which still has to be, relatively, normal. Let's say it's not going to go from $1 million today to 20 million tomorrow. I mean,
I think the key thing is that investors need to understand the way to value Valeo is not based on the current revenue and not the last year's revenue, but it's really the pipeline, the upcoming, what's happening, because that stuff could be modeled out. So
absolutely. You know, you look at it's not historical. You know, if we were a company that had, you know, was relatively mature and flat revenue, you look historically, but you can't do that. You'd miss out if you just valued us on our historical revenues and performance, and even our current, for that matter. You have to look at what's coming and when is it coming, and what's the probability that we're going to actually attain what we believe we can attain in terms of revenue. When I talk about Redesca as a $200 million market is addressing, this is numbers that are you know, third party derived. It's not our internal numbers. These are numbers that come from the marketplace in terms of what the market is actually consuming today in terms of units and dollars. So we have, as I mentioned in one of our earlier telecast, there's a lot of data in the pharma business. It's unbelievable, unfathomable how much
great stuff.
You get this sense of what it could be. So yeah, definitely look to. I would, you know, look to the future, and I think our analysts.
It's like we were talking before we started about you know, hockey, and this is sort of like, you know, as Wayne Gretzky says, you know, you gotta be where the puck is going, not chasing after the puck. So that's one of those things where you have to be out there.
A very good analogy there. It's you've got to think of where we're going to be in 6 months, a year, and you know, and even into the future past that. But I think you got to look at things in a relatively, you know, based on developments that are concrete. So we can say, hey, you know, we've got her Hesperco. We're going to be launching Hesperco. We anticipate approval of Redesca shortly. And what is that going to do to us? The others, you know, that are still in the development or negotiation, you can't really put a value on those. I think internally we do have models which say, well, if we got that, this is what we think where we could be, and so those are our own internal calculations and models. And as soon as we, you know, they materialize, well, we're going to be, even if, as I said, if the drug is something where, you know, we're licensing it today, but it's only going to be launched in a year and a half from now, you know, we're going to give you a sense of, hey, this is what we think this drug can do, how much it could contribute, and that'll add to our valuation. So you're right. Go to where, you know, where the puck is, and it's not so important sometimes. You got to know, you know, what the importance is that we've got an infrastructure. We've got people that have a lot of experience in the pharma business. We are a bricks and mortar company. We're not a virtual company. So we have that I think that strength of really some solid people that are technically proficient, and that helps. It helps in ways that your viewers, unless they're in the pharma business themselves, couldn't even imagine. And so I think that, you know, that alone, I mean, the team has got a value in terms of its ability to take a product, take a registration dossier, and completely turn it into a Canadian one, or that's acceptable in Canada, and then build the sales, build the marketing, and build, you know, little things that people don't think about is how is a drug priced, and who's going to pay for that drug. And Canada has a very complex, and that's another reason why a lot of companies don't want to come here, complex system and it's a key element, you know, is you know, you have some interesting drugs in the US that, you know, we just can't pay for in Canada, or can't deliver a price that makes it interesting for a US licensor to come to accept, because of the disparity in pricing between Canada and the US. So this is an interesting, and we have those capabilities in-house. So it's very valuable to be able to assess, or to say, how do we get the price that our partner wants and that we need to make this a successful drug.
Excellent. Well, Steve, on that note, I want to thank you, and we're going to have you back probably next week, or in about 10 days. We'll have you back for a full presentation in our next Superstock live stream, and we're going to learn all the latest details. Then, thank you everybody for joining us on today's live stream.
For having me, and again, we're looking forward to VPHIF trading OTC QB. You know, it's you know, it's just, these are all, you know, some are big events. These are smaller milestones, but everything builds upon the other one.
The snowball. Yeah, you got the raise $6 million, 6.9. You got the OTC. Well, Nick, and maybe in next week you'll have something else.
I'm sure I will.
Fantastic. Steve, thank you again.
Good talking to you. Cheers. Good night.